Welcome into College Football with David Pollack. I am David Pollack. Brent Rollins joining me as always. Brent, we've got this fancy music now. When you click our button, we've got an official intro. Like the art of podcasting and learning all of this stuff, it makes my head hurt. It makes me have to think, which is not one of my strengths. But we're going to talk college football. What are we going to talk today? You got a list of things, so straighten me out.
First off, I think thinking is legitimately one of your strengths. You downplay it massively, but it's actually one of your strengths. And you probably think about this stuff way more so than you should, but it's a new world for you. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with learning this world as opposed to your previous world. Nothing.
The thing I like about this though, man, the thing I do love about doing this is we get to control it. Like I do love that we get to control what we talk about. We don't have to worry about what anybody thinks. We don't have to worry about what anybody says. We don't have to worry about anything. We can just talk about football, college football 24/7. We can talk about the leadership in college football. We can interview coaches, and we're going to continue to do so. And having McGuire on from Texas Tech was awesome. Rich Rod from West Virginia. We'll continue to get coaches and talk about different things and just the world of college football, because there's a lot that goes on all throughout the offseason, which is really cool. And just like Eddie George getting a new gig, coaches, right? Like, first of all, if you met Eddie George, and I've met Eddie George probably 10 or 15 times, every single time, huge smile. He's an enormous guy. The fact that he plays tailback always kind of takes you back, because you shake his hand and like he is as big as I am. I'm 6'3", 245. Like, he is as big as I am. He is fit as crap. But it's got an unbelievable personality, very funny, very sharp. He's done musicals, he's done acting, he's done coaching. Like, the dude's he's the all-time leading rusher for the Titans. Like, he's done so many things at a high level. And when he jumped into coaching, you figure like it's only a matter of time where he's going to be successful, and goes to an HBCU. It was Tennessee Tech, right? Or Tennessee State. Yep. Did really, really well, and now, not surprisingly, he's getting his chance at Bowling Green.
So 24 and 22 in 4 years at Tennessee State, but obviously last season 9-4 and got to the FCS playoffs. And this is kind of the step up. Bowling Green's head coach left to go, I think, with the Eagles, maybe. But it's been a rough go of it which, by the way, do you know what the Bowling Green's mascot is? Just out of curiosity.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely should know that. How do I not know that? BVG was there. I spoke to their team one time when Brian Van Gorder was there.
They're the Falcons.
What are they? Huh?
They're the Falcons.
Like, yeah, that's embarrassing. That's pathetic. You should know that.
But since Dino Babers left in 26, right before 2016, they're 34-62. And previous to that, you had Urban Meyer, you had Clausen was there for a little bit, Dino Babers. So, like, they had a run of coaches that did really well and then went on to Power 4 conferences. But now with Eddie George, like you said, the player and didn't have any previous coaching experience, just jumped right in and said, hey, I want to run a program, learned on the fly, and obviously got better. And that's the thing you want to see. You want to see improvement. And he's done that. And now he's getting his chance in the MAC, and the MAC's potentially there for the taking. It's competitive football every year, but the best players oftentimes are now being poached into the higher levels.
Well, and you got a guy like Dion who's kind of shown you now too, like, he didn't have coaching experience, goes to Jack State, wins, goes to Colorado. Like, there is a big deal of being a celebrity. Like, there is a big deal of having a big name and factor when you're trying to recruit guys. And shoot, Dion doesn't even leave his house, by the way. Like, that's another topic for another day. Like, Dion doesn't leave. He doesn't go visit recruits and go to high schools, and he's not beating down a bunch of doors. Like, he's like, they can come to me. Like, they can come to Colorado, and had a good season last year. Interested to see without Shador, without Travis, those guys that he brought with him. But, Eddie brings a star power, a different value that, that gives you an advantage over another Mountain West team, right? Like, you're looking for an advantage over who you're recruiting against. You're not recruiting against Georgia and Alabama and Clemson and all these Ohio States and Oregons. Like, that's not who you're going against. And so to have the star power, I think, that definitely bodes well for Bowling Green, and excited to see. But he's legitimately a good dude, man. Just a good personality and a easy person to cheer for.
And it's a great state for football. I mean, there's a ton of high schools in Ohio, ton of players.
He played at Ohio State, ton of connections in the state of Ohio. That works well.
So when are we going to have David Pollock hired by ex college football team in the news? Are we going to have that in the news here in the near future, or no? Or
now,
you're having too much fun podcasting.
Yeah, right now it's fantastic coaching North Oconee defensive line and girls varsity basketball, baby. So I got offered a job last year at a really nice university, and I was like, Coach, it's a big honor. It's a huge honor, but like I get paid $0 right now to coach at North Oconee, so it's kind of hard to pass up girls basketball and boys football. But
you don't want to remove the lay coach title.
I'll definitely be calling Britt Rollins, though. I can promise you that. You're gonna have to be on the staff at somewhere. I can promise.
I'll be like that Ernie Adams guy that Belichick had that's just in the background, kind of doing all the research,
watching tape. You're not allowed to leave the room. You just watch tape all day, every day.
Do that. Well, spring is speaking of coaches, one other sort of point of coaching news that happened, I think maybe right before or right after we did the pod last week with Rich Rod, which go check that out. I think that was fun. He was a lot of fun in terms of some of his methods, but Dan Lanning got his raise and extension over $11 million. He's extended to 2030, and he is now one of basically 9 coaches that are at the $10 million per year mark. Can you name the others?
Sark, Kirby, Ohio State, obviously Ryan Day, who just got paid.
3.
How many more other?
So Dan Lanning would be 4.
Okay,
so we
Caleb
got 5 more. Yep, DeBoer is there.
So you got Ohio State. Is Michigan up there? Because all the money they're spending, it shouldn't. He hasn't earned it yet, but it doesn't mean you've necessarily.
Think national championships.
Yeah, Ohio State's coach Marcus.
Yeah, we got
Ryan
Day. No.
Is he there yet?
Freeman is not there yet. No, he might be coming.
He'll be there
soon.
one day.
Yeah, up the road from us. An hour and 15 minutes from us.
Dabo's
6.
Okay.
Out west. Way
Dan
west.
Lanning, we already talked about.
South. Lincoln Riley. And then Lincoln Riley's there. Bill Belichick is at $10 million. At least according to the list that I saw. And then Brian Kelly's basically there. I think he's at like almost 9.9 something or whatnot. So they're 9 coaches that are right at that sort of $10 million a year mark.
That would have been so crazy to say 10 years ago. Like,
yes,
it would have been nuts to say that. It's amazing because these coaches go through heck. Like, they absolutely, like, with the NIL and the transfer portal and what it's become. That's why Bowling Green's coach left to go to the NFL, and that's why you see it every single year, and you will continue to see mass exodus towards the NFL because it's easier. Like, the job you have in college football is way harder. It's infinitely harder than the NFL. The NFL obviously makes more money, but the job
more defined too. It's much more defined in the NFL. Periods and what the structure and things like that. I think that's
now we got a salary cap, and so we're starting to see, like, we basically got a salary cap in college football now. That which has come out, which is good. It helps. The coaches, I don't think, fall underneath that, which is a lot, which is good for all these people that are paying their coaches that much.
Speaking of coaches, listen to a recent interview. They did it a while. I think they did it before Valentine's Day, but it just got published recently. It was on the Coaches and the Mouth podcast. It's an Arkansas podcast, State of the Hogs, and they interviewed Sam Pittman. And it was a phenomenal sit down with him. And he's just such a great human to listen to, and how he talks and how he just, hits it straight at you. No bull, nothing. Like, he's phenomenal to listen to. But a couple of things that I thought were interesting that he mentioned in that podcast were there will always be a true walk-on, unpaid, at Arkansas to honor the Burlsworth family and the trophy and all that comes with that specifically, which to me is just phenomenal. Because, by the way, have you watched that movie?
I have not watched the movie, but I'm very familiar with the story.
Yes, you got to watch the movie. It's a good movie. I think it's called Greater, maybe is what it is. but the Brandon Burlesworth story. So that was one thing. And then the other thing I thought was interesting that he said was, if there's something that's going to benefit our program and our fans, we're going to have it. And he's talking about the spring game. And it was just to listen to sort of his heartfelt, hey, look, the fans affected the game at Tennessee. And these people want to come and see our team, and I'm going to let them come see our team. And because they're going and working and, you know, submitting money to the collective and things like that and supporting our program, we're going to do these things to sort of give back to those people that do that. He's like, because they really affected the Tennessee game.
Yeah. Sam Pittman is, first of all, Arkansas fans are awesome because they haven't won as much as they'd liked, for sure. They'd love to have more wins. They've had some glory days. You think about Darren McFadden and Peyton Hillis and Matt Jones was really, really good. Great fans, but Sam Pittman's a different bird. He's a different breed. He's an offensive line coach. It's not the glitz and the glamour. Like, that dude is a true hog. He loves the Hogs. Like, that was his dream job. He was at Georgia coaching offensive line, and it was very, like, I think he had a picture of a lot in Arkansas of where he was going to retire. Like, that's just kind of who he was. So the Arkansas Razorbacks, they mean something to him. It's not just a school. And I think you've seen that throughout his tenure. Last year was a really good year for them, considering, because nobody really expected much. But
he feels really good about his quarterback too, Taylor Green.
I can't believe he's there, Brent. I thought after I watched Taylor Green, I just figured he would transfer again. Now, he transferred from Boise, but watching that dude at that size run around, like, he doesn't look like he's 6'5", 6'6", and he's moving around, dodging people, making throws down the field. Remember, they bought in Bobby Petrino last year, and I think the thought with a lot of people was he'd be the interim coach by the end of the season. Their schedule was ridiculously hard, and Sam Pittman hadn't won at the level that a lot of people, you know, especially the way he started. He kind of started hot with his tenure at Arkansas. But this sounds good, Brent, and this is awesome. And you love this part of the game, the nostalgic part of football. It's still about the fans. But this isn't how it is everywhere. And it's not the real world anymore, because we used to mention student athletes. Student athletes are no longer. These are semi-pro athletes. Like, it's just, the landscape has changed. It's nice to see it. It's refreshing. It's refreshing to hear Sam Pittman talk. The walk-on thing doesn't get a lot of attention, but it should be covered because it's bull crap. Like, you think about the unbelievable stories that we've had with walk-ons that wouldn't necessarily happen, like a Stetson Bennett that was incredible, like a Baker Mayfield that was incredible. Like, those stories aren't a part of college football. Like, they're going to vote on the numbers soon, Brent, and I just hope they don't screw this up. Like, they're trying to cut the rosters back to 105, I believe, is what they're talking about.
That's the number.
Let's not be stupid. The NCAA, you suck at most things, okay? I'm a positive person. I'm positive the NCAA sucks, okay? Like, let's cut this. Let's make sure that walk-ons have a chance to be a part of universities. They've been a part since the beginning. It should be an integral part. People should have that chance to swing it, man, to be there, to be a part of a squad, to be something bigger than themselves, to go work hard and to earn spots. I know it doesn't happen often. Those stories we're throwing out are, you know, 1 in a million.
Anomalies.
Yes, but it doesn't matter. It's the point that it can happen, and it sucks because all you got to do is keep those numbers there. It's not going to affect anything. They're not getting paid a bunch of money. It doesn't change the game.
There's going to be a lot of teams, a lot of players that are looking for homes if that number is sort of hard and fast after the spring at 105. And I think at this point it kind of has to be. So that's going to be a lot of kids looking for homes that maybe otherwise wouldn't. But so speaking of spring and spring practice, one just sort of interesting note that it wasn't really talked about much, but I did, at least from a national perspective, I did see that DJ Lagway at the University of Florida is going to be limited in throwing activities during the spring with shoulder and lower body issues. So, you know, that's one where, hey, they know we know we got our guy and we're going to keep him healthy and we're not going to push any envelopes whatsoever. And, you know, all right, let these other guys compete and go get reps and find what we got behind him.
Yeah, and if I'm a Florida fan, I don't like this because reps is the king. Reps is what you need. You need reps. Like, you get better with reps. And listen, does DJ Lagway have potential? Yes. Did we see it? In spades? Like, he's got. I'm ready to go ahead and tell you he's a top 5 arm talent guys in the college football. Like, that son of a gun can absolutely spin the football. It comes out whistling. He can throw it through a car wash and not get it wet. Like, that dude's got an absolute hose. So I know that, but the refinement of playing the quarterback position. And I think learning the off-speed pitch for him will be big because I watch him throw the ball hard all the time, between safeties and linebackers, taking a little something off of it, using the lob wedge as opposed to the driver, And so I think you want to see that development. But the IQ game, the mental game, like there's quarterbacks across the country right now that are banged up a little bit, that need surgery, that are going to go through spring and then get surgery, like to try to get those reps. And people do that all the time. They'll go through spring to make sure they get reps, and then they'll have their procedure or whatever they need done. So, and then they'll be back by camp. But that's how important practice is. That's how important is getting so many reps, getting so many looks. And again, the timing with your receivers is so huge with new guys, because every quarterback in the country will tell you when they come out of their break, not everybody's the same. Some people look like they're moving slow. They're moving faster than they think. Like I was talking to Pug over there at Georgia, Puglisi, and the kid from Branch kid from USC. Yeah. And he was like, holy cow. He was like, never seen a guy that I have to throw the ball that early to him out of a break, because he's just, and he's out of his break, and Puglisi's a guy who's he's a big high school recruit for Georgia. He'll be a sophomore or redshirt freshman next year. Arm talent through the roof, unbelievable upside. But like that just shows you the chemistry that you need and the page you need to get on. So it's not a good thing. If I'm a Florida fan, like I need my dude throwing as much as possible. And yes, I need him healthy for the season, but he's still a young guy that has a lot to learn.
Yeah, I want health, but also want reps. Like it's a balance, and that Billy Napier has to solve that. By the way, spring practice for you, did you enjoy spring practice? Were you kind of, I'm sure early versus late days was a little bit different, but were there some times where you're just like, hey, can we just get through this?
Spring practice sucks. Like there's no way to spin it, dude. Like when you're younger in your career, obviously you're trying to do everything you can to get better and establish yourself, and you need all of those reps. And then as you get older, you're like, all right, man, like, and that's what people don't understand. People don't understand is like people point to game days and they're like, how fun is it? What a great atmosphere. That's awesome. 99% of the work you do, there ain't nobody watching. It's just you. It's in the stands. It was for me at Georgia. It was in the stands or in Sanford Stadium. Ain't nobody in the stands. You're just beating the piss out of each other, trying to win every rep. And like, it's tedious. It's just like everybody else that shows up and does their job every day. And you're always looking for an edge, and you're looking for ways to compete and to grow and to get better. But 100% it'll get monotonous. Like, because there's no game to play for in the end, right? Like when you're working real hard and there's a game at the end of the week, you're like, sweet, I got something to go, prove it and do it. And so spring ball can definitely get tedious and can get a little bit annoying, but you just got to focus on those little things you can fix.
I can imagine hearing like a coach telling you something about your hand usage or your get off on this play, and it's practice 12 of 14 in the spring, and you're about to be a senior, and you're just like giving him a look like, I got you, coach. I got you, coach.
Yeah, sure, bud.
So speaking of the games, though, so one of the great things about this lovely thing called Twitter X, whatever X now, you can post some questions on it. So got a time machine, can go to any future date in 2025, only goes to college football games. Which games are you going to? And there's a lot of good ones to look at in terms of just.
Is there a lot of good answers, or do you think there's one right answer?
I think in terms of days, there's one right day.
Okay.
And that's the opening. That's August 30th. That's the first day of the season. Basically, first day of the season.
I felt like that was to me, there was no other option. I mean, you talk about the magnitude of the moment, the game, like Ohio State and Texas is what you're talking about, right? Like that's.
Well, it's not just that. That's the thing.
Two playoff teams, that moment, that day, like it's fantastic. It's unbelievable. So, but we got some good ones.
Arch Manning getting his first start in the Horseshoe on August 30th. You also got LSU at Clemson, the Battle of Death Valley.
That's a big one, by the way. That's a big one, and we're going to talk about Clemson later on because they'll be one of my teams that I think are going to be really good this year. So I bet you we'll talk to Clemson about Clemson a lot because they're just, I think they're set up to be what they used to be in the past. Like I think everything about Clemson right now is about to go like this next season. But yeah,
LSU
how about that?
Struggled in openers, like
Open with
haven't won an
LSU
opener since 2019, I think, with Orgeron.
And we know LSU is going to be really good. And then Clemson, obviously, to end the season. They end with South Carolina. So they start with an SEC school, end with an SEC school, which will be two enormous challenges. Maybe they're bigger challenges on their schedule.
Also, a lot of people put Notre Dame at Miami, which is that weekend as well. Carson Beck actually gets to play Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He didn't get the chance
to
Georgia.
See, and that's where the game gets fun with all of these things because, to me, it's matchup, it's atmosphere, it's all the traditions, it's all these things that go into it. If you go to a Miami game, that doesn't exist. Like it's not somewhere you're going, hey, oh my gosh, you got to see this. Like what everybody asks me all the time, traveling for 15 years on game day, like what's the best vibe? Never once did I ever even think about in my head, like it would be at the very bottom, like Miami, because it's just such a different atmosphere and the way it's set up with the stadium being so far away from campus. And it's just, so that part would be disconnected and not on the list, but yes, Carson Beck versus Notre Dame. Miami's schedule sets up well for them to be a really good team next year. And they lost a lot, and we're going to see a lot about their coach. It's done a good job. He's did a great job a year ago. I would argue that team, there's no way that team should have not been in the playoffs. Like they should have been in the playoffs. And it's got to be frustrating to watch when you have that much talent. I think they should have been there.
And just as an aside with that, I wonder, looking at how much perception rules the NFL draft of certain things. If Miami's defense was halfway decent and they're 11-1 and they're the 3 seed, and you see Cam Ward in the playoffs and doing things and spinning it and maybe winning a playoff game, is he now granted, he might still be the number 1 pick, but is it just like slam dunk number 1 pick type thing? So that's always how that sort of plays out. You also got Alabama at Florida State that weekend, so August 30th. That was a heavy response.
What are we feeling about Florida State next year? I think that's going to be one of the most interesting teams in all of college football because obviously the way that thing ended, there are seasons that don't end the way you want to, and then there are seasons that the plane like literally crashes and burns and everything goes to heck in a handbasket. And that's what happened to Florida State last year. Like there was nothing positive to go, oh, well, they fought hard towards the end of the year, or, oh, they got some injuries. That shouldn't happen. Florida State should not lose that many games. So how they rebound and respond. They hired Gus Malzahn as their OC. So that's new. He leaves Central Florida and comes over. So I personally am not – I'm going to tell you this, and I believe this wholeheartedly. I think Norvell is a great play caller. I think he is an elite offensive mind. I'm not getting outside of 5 in the country probably, Brent, of without saying his name, because that's how good I think he is. But last year was such a disaster. And rebounding from that, then you open with Alabama? Oof. Okay.
It's like the GIF with the fire all around the cartoon character, and it's everything's fine, and the fire.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Michigan and Oklahoma later in the season was mentioned.
Yeah.
And then one interesting one, given that we just talked to Rich Rod last week, was Pitt at West Virginia on September 13th, backyard brawl. And when you think about it, now granted, I think they have somebody, that they should take care of in the opener, but that was his last game at Mountaineer Field, was the 07 game against Pitt when you lost and you could have been in the national championship. Should have been. The conference games are also get heavily listed there in terms of, hey, where are we going to go? Which games are going to Bama at Georgia, Texas at Georgia, Texas at Florida, Oregon at Penn State, Ohio State. So there's a lot of great games. LSU out at Bama. I think. I know
people don't understand unless you do it. And again, I didn't either, Brent, until I started traveling the country and really like seeing the different atmospheres, man. It's just like the whiteout. Like I think that's nationally known now. You know, people have seen that enough to know it's awesome. But Wisconsin, the jump around, like when they're good and that atmosphere that can be really good. It's interesting to go see Oregon out west when, you know, the stadium number and the size is smaller, but the ruckus is crazy. Washington fans are unbelievable, but playing in the SEC, the atmospheres are it's the best. It's top to bottom, it's the best. Are there Vanderbilts? Yes, but you also have so many good atmospheres that show up and that are – you talked about Arkansas to start. They haven't been dominant. That atmosphere, you don't want to play in that. You can't hear. They're nuts. They're chanting awesome chantings and sayings, and they're all about their squad, man. And so those games make a difference. Like, again, that's why to me the hardest thing to do is go on the road and win. It's the hardest thing consistently to do because you can be a little bit better, but that road environment is going to be an impact on the game. It's going to impact you and the way you call a game, the way you communicate. The advantages does swing over the other side. It's just how you handle it, obviously.
So needless to say, the opening weekend is going to be a lot of fun in
be
college football. And I obviously the rivalry games and the conference games that you see every year, those are great. But I do enjoy watching these games that you only get to see occasionally when it's the big-time programs against each other. You mentioned atmosphere. So another sort of X-based question that you'd put out there, college football game day tailgate you've never attended but would give anything to check out. Can you guess what the number one answer is? Like overwhelming number one. There was like almost 250 responses, and it was pretty clear who was number one or what was.
I haven't even looked, not surprisingly, but LSU.
So actually, I think that probably would come in second in terms of the responses that people put out there. And maybe it's because they haven't attended it and they want to. But LSU at night and being there that whole day, that's one that was mentioned heavily. But it wasn't the top one.
Okay.
And it's actually this one is one where it's more of the place the tailgate is that defines it.
Cocktail party?
So that was probably third.
State Fair,
Florida,
Texas,
Georgia.
OU?
I didn't see a lot of. I mean, I saw a few of those, but not there in terms of the tailgate.
Okay, what you got?
What do you think about? All right, all kinds of tents in a very small place.
The Grove.
The Grove.
Oh
the Grove
my God.
Was the overwhelming number one answer in terms of tailgate that people would like to attend that they haven't yet.
The first time I went to the Grove, it blew my mind. Like because it was cool to watch these people too, because it's literally like they don't let you on. And then all of a sudden they let you on and it's like a mad dash. And it's like, I will beat you upside the head with a chair to go get you to this spot. And this place all covers up and every inch of it is covered up. And it's just so cool to watch people too, that like, it's a science now. Like tailgating is so these people don't play, bro. Like, they got their tents and their TVs, and it is down to like they know how to bring the absolute bare minimum to hold their spot. They know, but then they're wheeling in all of their stuff. It's on wheels. It's electronic. It's nuts. It's nuts. But the Grove, that's a great one, man. Because if you haven't seen that atmosphere, it's the coolest thing. Like you walk into the field and there are tents palooza, people every single square inch. Like. There isn't an inch that's mine and that somebody will fight you for.
Very much so. And I remember, and seeing game day there throughout and other program, mainly game day, SEC Nation too, but all the little details, like you'll see the random chandelier or something and that's hanging from the tent. Personally, for me, I know any SEC environment is just unreal to go to because as someone who grew up in West Virginia and went to games in the north,
Saban would disagree. Saban would say, except for Vandy.
Well, okay. And then they got beat. But in terms of like for me, so I'd gone to games all throughout the Northeast, my entire life, and then come down here to Georgia for grad school, and we go to the game. It may have been your senior year, or it may have been the first year you were gone, but you guys played Georgia played Marshall, which Georgia played Marshall. Year. Yeah, that was your senior year. So that was my first year here. And we go to and some people come down from West Virginia, and we go to the game, and we're like, okay. And then you start walking around, and we were just absolutely in awe of, like, wait a second. There are girls who are wearing dresses and high heels.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere, literally everywhere. And you're just like, okay. Cause in the Northeast, this is, hey, we got to dress warm. It's jeans and a sweatshirt or something like that. And
young Britt was like, whoa, okay.
Like, what in the world is this place? And then you got the guy, the frat guys with the khaki pants and the sunglasses, the tailgating everywhere. Just the spectacle and event that it was beyond eye opening. For me,
I think we kind of take it for granted now, because now we're like so accustomed to it and use it, and like going. It's also strange that grown men will bark at you where we live. Like when I went to Georgia, it was socially acceptable for somebody to bark at you, and you're kind of taken back for a second, but that's a grown man barking at you. But you're right. That one of the things on game days I remember, the always being dressed up for the girls was always, because I remember playing at Ole Miss, and I vividly remember several guys being like, "Hey, check out section right over there." I was like, because the saying with Ole Miss,
college dudes going to be college dudes.
That's where they redshirt Miss Americas is Ole Miss. Like that's the saying. There is beauty is in abundance there. It is not only are the tailgates amazing, there's plenty of beauty, and then there's a lot of dressing up and the bow ties and all that stuff. It's
amazing. So cool. And there's so many that I want to go to at one point. Like, and that's one of the things, once the kids are out of school for me, I'm going to go to a lot more games and go see a lot of these different places. Some other mentions, the blue lot at West Virginia in Morgantown did get a mention. Penn State, when it's a whiteout, got a lot of mentions.
I don't know how that's not high on the list, because that's one of the best things you'll see in all of college football.
Well, I mean, that's more in game. You think about it than tailgating. The boat gating in Knoxville got a few mentions. Right.
Baylor there has that too, by the way. Baylor's right there on the water. It's kind of cool. It's obviously it's a different atmosphere for sure, but like the boating on the river is pretty cool.
Is there one place that you remember where you're just like, this is unlike anything I've ever seen outside of the Grove?
I mean, North Dakota State was crazy because, we went there and the whole city was literally shut down. Like it was just the whole city of fans, and the Fargo Dome is really, really, really unique and cool and packed in, and everybody just loves their squad. Virginia Tech stands out. That Inner Sandman and the tailgate is really, really awesome. But there's so many for the list to go on and on and on, and so many unique ones that are different and unique that's what makes the sport fun. Just the passion and I remember going to Minnesota and it's snowing and it's 4 degrees outside, and you got thousands and thousands of people out there chanting Skyima, and row the boat. So that's what makes the sport fun. And that's why despite all the changes that aren't necessarily the best thing for the game, we still support it because of those traditions and those fans.
That's part of life is college football. So in terms of what we have coming up the rest of the later part of this week, we did an interview with Mr. Tom Rinaldi that is going to air, I think is going to air on Thursday. And if anyone is watching this video, you best set your calendar and watch that with him, because I was in awe for 60 minutes.
I told you it was going to happen.
He is.
I told you,
unbelievable.
It's funny. I've never really seen Tom Rinaldi all over the place interviewed, and I'm like, why the heck if you know this cat, which I know him and have known him for so many years, like his stories and who he's been around and just the way he does his job and who he's come in contact with all over the years, from like he's going to have Tiger Woods stories and Nadal stories and Fed stories. And he's done stories on everything and everything in college football to, great Mike Leach stories. So we got to catch up with him. And I promise you, it'll be worth every second. Like he is. And then he's got Tom Brady stories because he works with Tom Brady now. And he's got Andy Reid stories, and he's got Sirianni stories for the Eagle. Like it's just broad scope of greatness that he's spent time with now for all these years. And he just has a great way of articulating it and teaching you things from it that you can apply to your life. He's a stud.
last thing for me before, as we close up for this one. I know you are very much one. I have it right sort of there too, I guess, that way. That faith is the first thing on the part of that, faith, family, football. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me and asked me and discussed and said, hey, we are praying for you as in you, Davey, and Lindsay, and your family, the dog, all the Georgia fans, my dentist. They have a morning prayer every morning, and they said, we're praying for Lindsay. So we will all be praying for Lindsay.
No, and we will take every single one of them. I've had a lot of people be like, hey, do you want to keep this quiet? I'm like, no. Like, we want everyone we know, because prayer works and prayer is a powerful thing. And so what Brent's talking about is my wife has brain cancer, and she has surgery actually coming up this week. And so we'll be at Duke University, and we know it's going to go great, and she's built for this, and we've got an army of people with us to support us. But if you are the praying type, we will take all of them. I promise. We will take them all, and we are appreciative of them all. And Brett and Deanna and their kiddos have been friends with ours for a long time, and they live next door to us. They're our neighbors. So they brought us the great care package was fantastic, by the way. I love the care package. I was like,
all sorts of good stuff in there.
Oh yeah.
Extra toasty Cheez-Its.
That's I tell you what, I'm a diet freak. Y'all know that if you've listened to us. I don't eat a lot of bad things. Very rarely do I do it. But extra toasty Cheez-Its are freaking fantastic. They are so great. I don't know why. I know they're not probably even real cheese, but I don't care because it's really good. So while we're at the hospital, I will be eating my extra toasty Cheez-Its.